Hey everybody, this is going to be a tutorial on how you can make a semi-monocoque fuselage, at least here in SolidWorks. So I know a lot of you guys have said you've been struggling with how to make your fuselage, don't know exactly how to begin. So I'm going to show you how to do that real quick. So first and foremost is to know the length of your plane. Just for reference, the fuselage that I'm going to be making today is going to be based off a wingspan of 48 inches. And then we're going to have just kind of like the general guideline of around 75% of the wingspan is going to be the fuselage length. So our fuselage is going to be 36 inches. What we want to do for this is define cross sections. So we need planes at different points in the actual air or in the fuselage. So what we'll get started with is doing a reference geometry plane. So from the front plane, I mean, you can do it any way, but I would recommend the front plane. It just makes assemblies a lot easier, and then you also can literally just hit this for front, and then you can look at the front of the fuselage. So we'll go and hit plane for reference geometry, and then if you remember, it's 36 inches for the length of the fuselage. And you can see here that the normal to the front plane is going to be here, so we want to flip this offset so that it's at the rear of the fuselage. Go ahead and click accept. We're going to show the front plane. Another parameter you guys are going to want to kind of focus on is going to be the length of the nose. So from the front plane to the length of the nose, for example, we're just going to call it around 10 inches. So from 10 inches from the front plane is going to be the length of the nose. So if we hit enter here, flip the offset again, and then this is going to kind of shape the nose of the fuselage. You can kind of imagine this as the part of the fuselage where the leading edge of the wing is going to connect, but that'll become a little bit more apparent as we go along. Okay, so as far as I'm concerned, unless you have some sort of special design in mind, these are the only planes you need because we're going to be fixing up the geometry or the shape of the fuselage using something called guide curves. So before we do that, let's start sketching what we want the cross section of the aircraft to be. So we'll do the front plane here. We'll go to sketch. I recommend always starting at the origin. It just kind of gives you a good reference point so that you can kind of figure out, at least in relation, what the shape of your aircraft is going to look like from the front view. So for the very front of the plane, we're going to, I think it was one of the spinners that I used for one of my aircraft is 2.5 inches in diameter. So we're going to start with that. We're going to assume that the front of the plane is going to be circular, that the spinner is going to sit right there. There are also different ways that you can tackle this because I know that a lot of people will have like the geometry of the spinner right here, and then they'd want that kind of flow to keep going. If you start with a 2.5 diameter right here, and you don't do any cuts for the spinner, it's going to look like it's segmented. And maybe I can show you that in like another part, but just to kind of get the general idea of the fuselage down, this is what we're going to do. Oh, and as kind of like a guideline, this is for tractors, so any sort of puller aircraft design. Okay, so we have our initial sketch, 2.5 inches in diameter. We're going to sketch on the technically the end of the nose and the beginning of the main fuselage. So it's roughly 10 inches from the beginning, kind of where your motor is going to sit. If we look at it from the front, we're going to have this kind of shape to like play around with, but also it's going to have to merge smoothly into the shape behind it. So one thing that I always do is do a centerline relation. It's not defined right now, but we can set that up pretty easily. So let's say we want, at least on the bottom here, from the origin, so the center of the aircraft, to the very bottom, we had 2.5 inches in diameter for the circle, which is going to be 1.25 inches for the radius. So let's extend this out to like 1.5 and see how that looks. I think that fixed it. I don't know if it was just okay. Yeah, so that's fine. So we could probably get away with 1.35 and see. We also want the height let's just say this is going to be 2. See what 2 looks like. And of course, we can go back and kind of edit these values as we please. So this is just kind of like the initial, like, oh, let's get an idea down. And then later we'll come back and refine it. One thing that I do like to use is something called a spline. You can make this a little simpler on yourself and just use like a corner rectangle, go from here to here, add fillets on the side, like here and here, increase that. And then that'll be like kind of the cross section of your aircraft, but I don't like to do that. I like to use splines, and you can kind of like just kind of assume a point. So like here, here, and here. I will say my SolidWorks does kind of mess up with splines. I think I can show you. If I try and edit this, oh no, it's behaving all right now. Okay, so when it comes to mirroring half of a profile, what you want to keep in mind is that you want this to be smooth between each side. So if we mirror this real quick, you can see it comes to a sharp point, right? And that's not something that we want to have on our aircraft. I mean, there's a couple of aircraft out there that kind of have this shape to it, but they have a really smooth part here. So if you're going to do that, keep that in mind to kind of like add a fillet. But in my case, I just prefer, I prefer to do something like this. So you would move the line. Okay, there's acting up. If this happens to you, so you can see it's kind of like freaking out on me. If you click this line and check, or if you click off maintain internal continuity, it kind of fixes it for you. It's still kind of fatally, but regardless. So one thing I like to do, as I was saying, is I will move this arrow. So you click the circle and you drag it anywhere, it doesn't matter. You will hold control and click the center line and do perpendicular. So whenever you have this mirror, it would have kind of like an easier curve over the top, and it won't have like that large jut or the large, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Regardless, it won't have that sharp geometry. So just kind of keep that in mind. So we'll do this for the bottom as well. So just kind of move that and then do perpendicular. Okay, so now we kind of have the rough idea of what we want the aircraft to be. Let's do some spline editing. So I want this on my aircraft to be vertical. So this line, I think if I try and move it, yep, okay, good. And then the same thing, I actually may delete this one. So if I delete that point, it'll get rid of that. And then I can kind of like flesh that out. So again, uncheck maintain internal continuity if it's messing up, but if you can't move it with this like line here, just go down on this left side where this where there's a positive or negative value. As long as it's not 0, because we have it perpendicular, you can kind of click and hold and then watch it as it goes. Same thing here. So you're going to have 2 values. One is going to be the upper one, which is going to be this greater value. In this case, just because it's a larger arrow, or I guess you can call it a vector. And then you have the smaller value here. So just to kind of like get an idea for the shape, maybe we want this to be kind of triangular. I think my last aircraft also had something similar to this, but I won't try to make it identical. And then we'll go down here and check this again. Say maybe we want this to be a little sharper. Okay, so we have half of the design of the fuselage at the nose. One thing we need to check is the curvature of it. So as you can see, if we show the curvature, you're going to see there's a ton of curvature right here. It gets to this point and it's almost like flat, and then it gets really curved up here. So one thing that we can do, or one thing we should do, is to try and reduce that change in curvature. So if you can see like right here, how much more curved it is at this point than it is, say, here. I like it to be kind of like almost even. It doesn't have to be, because, you know, the shape of the aircraft is going to determine how curved it is. The important thing to know is that you don't want anything on the inside. Now to fix that, you can keep going through and like adjusting curves. Like, so you can see right there. If you have internal curvature, which are these lines here, it's showing you that your aircraft is going to curve in on itself and then curve right back out. Personally, I don't like having that there because it just means, I don't know. I just I don't prefer it there. I think there's some things on there you can read up as well, but yeah. So if it were me, I would try and keep away the internal curvature. You can have it on a design if you like to have it that way, but for me personally, I don't like having it there. So, okay, we will finalize this design, say, okay, that's not bad. Now we're going to mirror it. So we'll drag this over here. We'll drag this over here. Ah, yes. Okay. So one thing I forgot is the width of your aircraft. If you notice right here, we have a width of 1.68. So double that. Well, let's just call it 3.5. So we'll just do 1.75 and see what it does to our aircraft design. So it's not bad, and we can fix it later. But anyways, let's continue on. Let's mirror this section, and it should make hopefully a closed design, although it doesn't appear to be closing. So let's see if I can repair sketch and see what it shows me. No problems. Okay, maybe it is closed. So as a test, we're going to do a feature loft. So lofted boss base from here to here. Okay, so it is closed. Cool. So that's part one. Let's edit the sketch and remove the curvature. So if you just click the spline and then click show curvature, it disappears. And then all the way down here, we're going to sketch and just kind of figure out where we want the empennage to be. So if we want it to be in line with the nose, we can do that. But it's kind of like my own design choices, prefer the tail to be further up. So we'll just do kind of like an arbitrary design. Maybe another circle would work, just kind of temporarily. We will add the height to be 1.75 and see how that works. So it's going to be curving up. Instead of that, what we can do is make a coincident relation there. So what that means is that that point is never going to go above the top of the fuselage. It's up to you if you want a little bit of space between the top and the bottom. It works just the same. If you have it without the relation, you're just going to notice the top of your plane is going to curve as well. So your nose is going to have the curve, and then the tail is going to have the curve. So yeah, I guess we'll do that real quick. Let's set up a center line from here to the edge of the circle, and we'll use that point as kind of like dimensioning. So we'll do 1/4 of an inch from the top. Now when it comes to the size of the rear of the fuselage, I would say at least small enough so that your like empennage covers the entire thing. If you want it to attach, however, that's a different story, where if you make it this like 1 inch in diameter, it's going to be awfully large, but you can at least kind of like slot your horizontal and vertical stabilizer into that section. And obviously I'll kind of explain that as I go along once we finish the thing, but I'm going to leave it at 0.25 for now, or maybe 0.5. So 1/2 inch. Okay. And then we will use that as kind of like our loft guide. If we do the lofted boss base right now, we can see that it's kind of a plane, right? But maybe we want this part to be thinner, or maybe we want it to be kind of like a reverse curve. So it like curves up here and then goes down, or we just want a little bit longer of like a body. So if you remember, this is from nose to the front of the wing, and then we have from the front of the wing to kind of like the rear of the wing. So maybe we can add out some thickness here and then make a nicer curve here. Now, if you look at the left side, it's going to say guide curves. Now we're going to do a sketch that's going to become these guide curves, and it's going to follow kind of like what we want the plane to look like. Yeah, okay, so let's do that first. So we're going to sketch on the right plane, and this is going to be just one of the guide curves, right? So we'll do another spline. We'll just set coincident from this plane to this plane, and then here as well to the end plane right here. Now we're gonna click and control click. We're gonna click this point that we just made, and we're going to hold Control and click the circle or the very beginning cross section, and we're going to hit Pierce. We're going to do this for each and every cross section that we have. If you have multiple, if you have more than 3, obviously it's going to take a little bit more time to kind of get set up, but just keep doing this, and then you're going to have your design right there. So one thing I have noticed is that with this spline design, we're going to have kind of a curve here, and then it's going to get thicker at the back. If we, for example, do something like this, and then we're going to click this, hold Control, hit Tangent, it's going to give us the height of the line from the origin. Actually, we can wait to do this, but eventually what this is going to lead to is that you're going to have a part of the plane that's going to be higher than what you planned. So if you remember, what I was planning for this is that it's going to kind of like curve up gently to here, be flat, and then kind of curve back down after it gets past the wing. So we will do something right here. We're going to make a center line that goes from here to here, and then we're just going to trim this back portion. So in reality, you only had to make it from the nose to the front of the wing. But just kind of like figure that out as you go along, I suppose. Again, we're going to do a perpendicular relation because we want this to be kind of smooth to a flat portion there. I'm going to do my own thing to kind of like fix the geometry, I suppose. Don't forget to show the curvature to kind of see what's going on. Okay, so there's one portion of it, and then we're going to have the length of the fuselage. So I'm just going to estimate from the front, or from the nose, or the end of the nose to the end of the main fuselage. Let's say we have a chord length of 10 inches. So we'll do 10.5 inches from the end of the nose to the end of the main fuselage, and then we're going to make another spline from the end of this to, again, this plane. Hold Control, and then click on that spot right there and make it coincident. If you notice, this was supposed to be a spline, so we will kind of add the relations there. So hold Control, click here. You can do parallel, collinear, it doesn't matter. I just did collinear. So if you can see, this one shouldn't have that much curvature to it at all. Or actually none. Yeah, like almost 0, which is fine. If we had this tail piece a little lower, you'd see more curvature, but it doesn't matter at this point. So we will hide the curvature, hide the internal continuity, and then we'll exit. And then we're going to make another sketch on the right plane. So 2 sketches. I wouldn't recommend making it in the same sketch. It makes it a little bit more difficult to kind of get it right. But we can use that top sketch as kind of like a guideline. So now that we know that we're going to have kind of like a flat body here, we can just do a spline from here to, let's see if I can get it, to this plane, or not. Let me try one more time. To this plane, and then do the coincident right here. And then this one is going to be pierced just because there's no point. So there we have our curve right there. We will kind of estimate what the curvature of that line is going to be. So we'll click and drag this, hold Control, do perpendicular, and then maybe we can get rid of that, increase the strength, make sure to turn on curvature so that there's no inflection points. So there is, which means this is a little too strong. And maybe we can get away with getting rid of some of the angle in it as well. So you can kind of see that the distance between the bottom of the nose to the bottom of the end of the nose doesn't allow too much curvature. So what we can do is kind of edit that ourselves. If we go into this sketch right here, I guess we have to set that up as well. So we'll add a point. We will click this, hold Control, and do pierce. Oh, maybe coincident. Yeah, okay, so coincident. And then we're going to smart dimension this to here. Oh, I see. Okay, instead of doing all that, we will Control Z, and then edit this to be, let's just do 1.5. Okay, now if we exit this sketch, let's take a look at the sketch we just made. And you can see now there's a different curvature because this angle is a little different. But you can now see that there's a little bit more curvature to this spline here, which may be what we want. Next up, we're going to just do a line from here to here because we found that here. If you want, you can also kind of shorten this line depending on what kind of design you want. But we're just going to make this kind of vertical to this. And then we're going to make another spline from here to the bottom of this circle. But I guess we have to do the plane. Click this, hold control and do pierce. And then we'll do the same thing we did as all the other splines. So from here, click and drag this down, doesn't matter where. We're going to make this collinear because we want the smoothness of it. And then we will remove that, kind of reduce this to make the curve here a little bit more drastic. And we can see that as I'm going along, is that the curve is going to continue to be kind of like, it's going to have a high curvature amount. Now for the tail section. So at the very end of the fuselage, you can kind of do whatever you want. If you want to do, so like this, you can make it like bulge out at the bottom if you want. That's going to give you kind of a thicker area to put in more structure. Or I just did this recently. You can actually add in a little bit of, or you can add an inflection point. So it's going to kind of, let's see if we can extend this a little bit here. It's going to add a little bit of a different design compared to, other things. But it also, might look a lot better for your aircraft. So this is the only time that I would kind of recommend adding this reverse curve if you wanted to. However, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep the tail section kind of bulky because I kind of like that design. It kind of looks like a cargo plane in a way, where they have the cargo hatch coming down. So yeah, there's no more inflection point here, and then we can exit our sketch. So this is going to be an awfully long design, as we can tell. Maybe we can shorten this down. I think we're going to do that actually. So instead of 10.5, we will do maybe 8. So 8 should be fine. That should fix the other sketch as well. So it moves that here. We're going to enter this sketch and reduce or increase this value to 0.75 and see how that looks. We'll hit X, we'll exit. And then, okay, that's not too bad. But just make sure that you're not following this like to a T, because you can make whatever design that you want in this aspect. So, okay, if you look here, we kind of have an issue now with one of our connections. So we can delete this, come down, hold control. If that's not coincident, we'll try it again, and then we'll do a pierce. Okay, so now you can kind of see like the top is going to have a little bit of curve. The bottom is going to have a lot of curve, so we can kind of adjust that. I think that should be fine just for the sake of the tutorial. But yeah, so you can do side guides as well. This is when it gets a little crazier. So in order to do like a side curve, you have to connect from here to here to here, right? And that kind of gives you that shape. But it's way more difficult to kind of actually get what you want out of the curve. So you'll notice that from here, actually I can show you from the front, the 3D curve is going to kind of like swoop up. So in order to kind of get the right idea for what you want, you have to make sure that whenever you move these arrows, that they lie on the same plane as your line. But that's like extremely difficult. So for the sake of AVD, I would just kind of stick with the top and bottom curves and then see what you can get from that. So let's hit the sketch and we'll finally make the fuselage that we wanted. So we'll connect these lofted sections by doing the loft feature. And now you can kind of see what our guide curve is going to do for us. So we'll add one here. I always prefer doing selection manager and then making sure that it's on the select group. And then you'll just kind of click this top section and you'll hit check. You can kind of see it already changed the shape. And then next up, you'll do another selection manager, same thing. So select group and you will click the lines down here. And let's see if that works. Okay, so yeah, here's kind of the design of the aircraft that we have now. You can kind of see where it's like super flat on the side. And then kind of bulkier on the bottom. Maybe there's like a C-17, if you guys seen that aircraft. But there is something important that I want to mention here. So if we evaluate and we do something called zebra stripes, you're going to see this weird geometry that we've got going on here. In terms of AVD, I would recommend kind of avoiding this. And if you go into industry, I would definitely recommend avoiding geometries like this. This is not something that would be kind of like acceptable, or it would be passing. So there are a few ways that you can kind of get by this. I think you can even see it in the curvature, is how it kind of splits right there. And you can see the change in color. So again, there are a few ways that you can kind of get around this. Let's see if a surface would actually kind of fix this. So we'll do a lofted surface, kind of the same thing that we just did. Guide curves, selection manager, kind of click this. And then maybe we can actually just click this and then it counts. Okay, yeah, just click it. Now we'll hit the check mark and let's take a look at our geometry. So it's still kind of giving us that weird geometry, right? One thing that might be a little bit better is to change the rear sketch. So if you see, we kind of have like, I would consider this kind of like a triangle, but maybe we can kind of fit this into some sort of a box. So we'll delete this. We'll make just kind of a generic rectangle for now. Dimension this to 0.5, and then we'll kind of, I think this was 0.5 as well, or 0.25. We will do, let's do 1/4 of an inch and see what happens there. Right, sorry, 0.1. So the standard fillet. So we'll sketch fillet that. We will exit, or we'll exit the fillet feature. We're going to mirror it and then exit. We're going to have to fix this. I think it should just be back here, no? Yep, so pierce point, get rid of that. Now we can slide this down, hold control, click this point, hit coincident. All right, let's try this again. So we will do features, lofted boss base. The same things. Should be that one. Okay, good. We can kind of get a sense of how it's gonna look if we just like scoot around. It looks okay. Now let's see if we can add our guide curves and if that's gonna fix it or not, or it's gonna make it worse. So yeah, we can see it makes it worse right there. What this might be due to is the fact that the bottom is kind of like a line. So where's our guide curve sketch? So right here, this one is kind of like a line, right? I wonder if we can delete this, slide this all the way over there. Hopefully, or not. Okay, we'll just do this again real quick. I'll set this up. So from here to this side there. Drag this up. And then we're just gonna make this line tangent to here. Then just make it longer. Kind of estimate the length of the fuselage, I suppose. I'm gonna add this little inflection point just because, and then we're going to delete the loft. Then we're gonna edit this again. Hold control, and click, hit coincident. Kind of extend this out some more, hopefully. Just do 50, see what that looks like. That's not too bad. It's a little thick. That's fine. Yep, another spline issue there. Okay. We'll leave that the inflection point. I think there's what, 2? Or just 1? There's just 1. Close, we'll hit exit, and we'll try again. If this doesn't work, then you may have to do different geometry for your cross section in the center here. Change the distance from the bottom of the nose to the bottom of the end of the nose. There are tons of ways to get around it. Unfortunately, SolidWorks is just going to be pretty finicky about it. So again, we'll try Loft and Boss Base, and then we will select the loop here. And then we're going to try again. And then we'll try one more time. Let's see if that made it any better whatsoever. So not really. I mean, it kind of gives it like a decent shape. And actually, there's no bad geometry. It's just not what we wanted the plane to do, right? So it's a lot thicker, kind of like towards the rear here instead. If we go to evaluate in zebra stripes, you can see that it's much cleaner on the side. So that's a step in the right direction. Now it's just going to be, how are you going to constrain it, right? Do you really care if it's this wide down here, or you're like, okay, no, that's passable. I would recommend kind of delving into the 3D sketches. Getting that to work for you might be beneficial, might be kind of like the design that you want to go for. But yeah, so say this is like our final design for the fuselage, and we're like, okay, we're going to have the wing slot in right here, and then have the wing box inside of that. If you are doing semi-monocoque, excuse me, then you can cut it the same way as you did for the wing. So I'll just show real quick, just in case you haven't seen that video. But we will make a box that expands further than the width of the fuselage. And we're going to dimension that for 3/16. So 3/16 is going to be the thickness of our balsa in AVD. And then we're just going to hit the check mark here. We're going to do linear sketch pattern on the, this is going to be the Z axis. So I wonder if we can just click this line here. Okay, good. Next step, we'll go down to entities to pattern. We're going to click all of the sides of the boxes here. Maybe. Okay, since I used that line, we're just going to have to make a new center line. And maybe it might work in X, but I'm just going to do this way. So we'll do this again. Maybe I can highlight this and hit linear sketch. Yep, okay, so highlight it, hit linear sketch. The X axis, we're going to do this line here. We're going to reverse the other way. Now, if you remember, the length of the fuselage is 36 inches. And you can see it extends a little bit too far. So we will subtract the thickness of the former. That puts us in here. Now, we kind of want, I don't know, we definitely want even spacing between it. Depending on where your motor sits, maybe you can slot in a second former. And I can show you kind of how to do that in a second. But say it's 36, say we want 20 formers. We're going to divide this by, I think it's n-1. So if we want 20, we want divided by 19. And then we're going to change this to 0 and hit enter. That should make an evenly spaced amount, or evenly spaced formers between each other. And then, yeah, okay, so we'll hit the check mark here. We will go through our features, extruded cut. We're going to do through all both, as well as the thin feature. Now extend the yellow, make sure they overlap with each other, kind of like that. And then just hit the check mark. You're going to keep all bodies because you're cutting the formers out. And here are your formers. So these are like easily, okay, so we can actually kind of see here, there's some bad geometry that we kind of don't want. But no, regardless, here are the formers that you're going to be cutting out. You're going to be adding in like maybe some like spars up in the top, or longerons, whatever you'd like to call them, to kind of increase the rigidity of the structure. Or you can add in a wing box structure right around here. So now let's say like, oh, my motor extends to like right about here, and all I need is another former, right? So we go back to our sketch around the third part here. All we need to do to keep that spot is to just make another former, smart dimension it to 3/16. And then I think the best way is to just trim that out and then hit exit sketch. And that gives you two formers. Now you're like, well, okay, so I made two formers. How am I supposed to split that? Well, there's a feature that you can use. We're going to sketch in the top plane. And we're going to type, well, actually, we're going to make the sketch first. Sorry. So over the sketch here, you can kind of see, just set it arbitrarily over the center. We're going to connect a center line from either side. So from here to here is 6/16 or 3/8. So the line, if we measure that, should be exactly that. It's like 0.375, which is fantastic. We're going to exit out of that. We're going to right click the arbitrary line we made, hit select midpoint, hold control, hover over this center line, click on that point there and hit coincident. Make sure that this line also goes further than the formers, because we're going to use this line to split both of those formers out. So we'll just type in the top right here, it says split. Now, target bodies is going to be just this set of formers here, but technically it's one. So we'll just click that and hit cut bodies. And on the left, it'll give you resulting bodies. So you can see that it split it into body 1 and body 2. We're just going to hit the check mark on both of these to keep them. If we uncheck this one, we're only going to keep this front one. So we'll go ahead and split there. We'll hide this. And now you can see it's two formers. So we can just hide this one by itself and it goes away. Okay, so then you can do that kind of like for any part on the body. For example, if you wanted the fuselage, the main fuselage to kind of connect to the nose, you can add in, or you can kind of space it out however you want. So we will go back into our cut. So we'll delete all of the things that we just did. And then we'll go into this sketch right here. So, I guess, okay, we're going to delete everything. And then instead of doing the full 36, what we can do is we can highlight this, hit linear sketch, maybe get rid of this one here. So we'll hit linear sketch, and then we want to do, instead of 36 inches, we're going to do 10 inches. So set the direction that it's going to go, type in 10, do a reverse. Again, it's going to be longer than what we want. So divide by 3/16. And then since it's around 10 formers, maybe we can get away with 6. So we'll divide this by n-1, which is 5. And then type in 6 right here. So now you have a former that's going to match up. Or you're going to have formers that kind of go the length of the nose. And then if you want to kind of double it up, you just add in another rectangle here. Label, make sure it's dimension to 3/16. And then it's going to be a linear sketch for 26 inches now. So we'll go into linear sketch pattern. We'll click here. Oops, that was setting the lines. I apologize. So we'll go up to direction 1. We're going to click our center line down here. Entities to pattern. Just click one of these. I know there's 2 over there right now, but it doesn't necessarily matter. Okay, so now we have that former, and we're going to do 26 inches, and we're just going to preempt this, divided by, or minus 3/16. Reverse the direction, and it's going to put it in there. So we have 26 inches. Let's just do like, I don't know, 19, maybe 20. We'll do 20 again. 20 and minus 1 is 19. And then just add a 0 there. So you're going to notice that there's different spacing. If you wanted different spacing, you can. If you didn't, then just kind of calculate that on yourself. But, oops, that did not work. I wonder why. All right, we'll try that again. So control click all of these sections, do linear sketch pattern, choose the axis for here, and then we're going to rotate it. We're going to do 26 inches minus 3/16. Divide that by 19 because we want 20. Hit 20. Let's see if we can get this working again. So we'll just hit check. Okay, there we go. Since we split that there, we'll just trim here twice. We'll exit the sketch. I don't know why I couldn't do the extrude cut then. Okay, so there we have the same thing going on, but now we have kind of a different amount of formers for the after the fuselage here and kind of the main portion, and then we kind of have less in the front. Again, you can kind of add the formers as you want. If you want to add this double layer, don't forget to add that split that I showed you earlier using this function in the top right. You just hit search, do split, make a sketch in the top plane, and then kind of do the steps that I showed before. You can kind of get your fuselage to be designed how you want. So again, to kind of recap, once you have an idea for what you want your aircraft to look like, just make section views out of it, right? So the section views are going to dictate how your plane is going to look. So say, for example, you wanted this square section to kind of pop up here instead of being here, and then just kind of go into a circle. You could have this triangular section that we made earlier go into another square section here, and then, you know, kind of loft out to the back here of whatever shape you want. When you do this, some people will want to kind of have the wing fillets built into the former. So I would suggest having, let's see if I have it here. Yeah, initial plan. I would suggest having something like this, where you have your wing already set in there. You already have your fuselage set up, and you already know where you want your wing to be. What you can do is you can include this section of the wing from here, for example. I think if I go one more. Yeah, so it's kind of like what I was showing in the wing video last week, is that you can have this cut. But instead of it cutting the fuselage, you cut the wings, right? So I will show this real quick. Extruded cut, we will do through all both. We'll do the thin feature. It doesn't matter how thin, but we're going to select the body to keep. So it's just going to be the fuselage. Now what you can do is sketch from the top, do the top plane. I don't remember how long this is going to be, so I'll just do something silly. This collinear, and then obviously smart dimension 3/16. I wish I had like a macro for that. We highlight this linear sketch pattern. Say that's the wrong way, so we'll just do Y direction. That should be fine. We'll do 26 inches. We want 8, so divide that by, well, that won't show it very well. So we'll have 20 minus 3/16, and then divide that by 19. So that kind of gives us the formers there. We'll do that, extruded cut. We're going to do through all both with a thin feature. Kind of look down from the top. Make sure they all intersect each other like that, and hit the check mark. So we'll keep all bodies, but the important thing to see now is that you're going to have your wing kind of set up in this like slot that you want, and it's going to make, I don't know, the form or the shape of the aircraft kind of look a lot better if you don't use monocoque to kind of create the fillet itself. So for example, I would recommend doing this before you get the formers, but you can add a fillet and then increase the radius, and then just kind of make that the clean, smooth, kind of like let the wing blend into the fuselage. So if you're making the fuselage and you kind of want that blend, then make sure you do the cuts with the wing. For your empennage, if you want to make this thicker to kind of support the empennage by itself, you can. Or you can literally have the fuselage blend into the horizontal stabilizer and then blend into the vertical stabilizer. But that's not something I'm going to show, mainly because I don't really know how to do it that well. Same thing with this portion. I'll show you if I undo a lot of this, including the cuts. You're going to see that it's going to throw a fit if I try and do like a fillet. For people who are more advanced with the aircraft design, or kind of like SolidWorks in general, I mean, you guys can figure that out, but if I try and do more than half an inch of a fillet on this wing, it throws a fit. And like, that's nice. I would recommend, maybe if it's something like this, it's something simple, you can kind of keep that geometry or figure out how to blend that in with the monocoque. But yeah, it's just something to keep in mind if you wanted to kind of have that smooth blended body and wing look. But again, I'm not going to show how to blend the empennage or the wing. I'm just going to show you the basics of how to get yourself up and running with the design of your fuselage. So, okay, I think that's kind of covered everything, at least insofar as what I wanted to do with the fuselage. Again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out. If I get enough questions regarding a certain process, then I can make a separate video just for that. So feel free to reach out. But yeah, guys, I hope this video helped a lot. You know, good luck on your plane. Make sure you are, you know, keeping up with all of the guidelines that we have for the competition. But as always, if you need any help, let us know. All right, guys, good luck.